technical person today, so I'm really excited to have her here. And also everyone, my name is Sonny Grint, and I'm thrilled to be here. I work with Singer Sewing Machines, and we're going to talk today about some stuff about threading and tension and different things like that. So that's our kind of what we're doing today. Today is part 2 of a 5-part series. And so if you did come last time, welcome back. If you didn't, the original or the part 1 is actually up on the Michael's YouTube site. So you can always find us there. So thrilled to have you back, and great to see more people coming with us today. Like I said, we are on part 2 of a 5-part series. So today what we're going to do is we're going to thread, wind a bobbin, and we are going to talk about tension a little bit. So it's going to be a pretty packed hour-long session here, guys. So just wanted to kind of let you know that. I have 2 great people helping me today. One is Vanessa, and the other one is Amy, and they're going to be answering questions in the chat. So everyone, if you do have a question, please go ahead, put that in the chat, and Vanessa and Amy will either do their best to answer for us, or if need be, they will ask me the question too. So certainly don't hesitate to ask a question as we're going along. And I think the last thing I just kind of want to say before we get started is, guys, everything that I'm kind of showing, we had last session, we had people wondering, where could you get this? Or, you know, I had talked about thread and different things like that. And so I did find everything that I'm using right on michaels.com or at Michaels. So know that those are there as well as the machines. So anyway, so I think that was it. Ladies, did I forget anything at the beginning to remind people of? I don't think so. Yeah, I think we're good to go. All right. So everyone, today, like I said, we're going to start by winding a bobbin, then we're going to thread, and then we're going to make a stitch. So that's how we're going to kind of work this today. Now, I am going to go ahead and probably switch over already to my other camera, because what I want to do, and I want to do that later, is, and I'm going to continue here, is when we're winding a bobbin, the bobbin winding spindle, everyone, is up here on the top of our machines. Now, I say that because, you know, every machine is a little bit different. All of our Singer machines have the bobbin winding spindle at the top. I know I've seen a couple people saying I have a Viking, or I have a Pfaff, or I have a Brother. You do, for those particular machines, you may need to look and see somewhere else. But for our Singers, they're right up here at the top. And no matter if it is, whatever machine it is, it's right up here at the top. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that again, we talked about this last week, but this is the bobbin winding spindle. The other thing, before we wind a bobbin, everyone, I want you all, if you have a Singer machine, or again, any machine, you need to find your bobbin tension disc. This is for when you wind a bobbin. So see how I've got one here? I pulled down a different machine today, so you could see there's one here. You're going to need to find where the tension is for your bobbin. So that's really important. Okay, so that's really important. Now, I'm gonna do most of my work here today on my Singer Heavy Duty, but all machines, about the same thing. So don't be too, you know, I'm going to give you tips, hints as we're going through, but these are the 2 things you need to find on your machine, this bobbin winding spindle, and then your bobbin tension. All right, so that's going to be very important. Now I am going to put my camera down, and today this is a little tricky, and I'm sorry if I'm going to make you a little seasick here. But this is the best way for me to do this, is I'm going to take this and bring this as high up as I possibly can for my camera, everyone. And again, I'm going to try and not make you too seasick as I'm going along. And I'm also going to do that. So hopefully that's going to allow you to see what I've got going on up here. So the first thing we are going to do now is we do want to go ahead and put our thread right on our spindle like this. So there's one up back here on one of our other machines. It's upright. It just really depends. I do recommend for those of you who were here last time, everyone, we talked a bit about thread. Good quality thread is important, please. I mean, if you have old thread that you don't remember when you bought it or things like that, it may just not be, a good thread for sewing machines. So please, I use the dual duty thread. Michaels has this. They have the small spools and the larger spools, so that makes it nice. I'm going to slide that on here. Okay, so I'm going to slide this on. And then I do recommend that if you use a spool cap. Now, I'm just going to stop for just a minute, everyone. And the reason why I stopped is I automatically see how my thread, I know it's a little tricky to see, but how my thread is coming over the top. It's pulling off over the top like this instead of underneath. Okay, so instead of underneath, I've got it going over the top. Most machines, you want it to come over the top, but everyone, that is not, I'm going to say that is not critical. What's critical is you're getting a good stitch. So if you're having problems, go ahead, you can flip the thread around. It's not, that one isn't as critical as some people think. So just, I like it to come over the top. Then I'm going to go ahead and use a spool cap that's a little bit bigger than my spool, and I'm going to push it and get that right up to the edge. I don't want a gap. See how you can kind of see there's a gap between the spool and the spool cap? Your thread can get caught in that. So I'm going to go ahead and push that all the way so it's touching really, really well there. So after I've done this, I'm just going to move my camera up, because remember I mentioned about this tension, right? It is really important that you get your thread into the tension. So I'm going to take my thread. Okay, I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to wrap it around like the picture on top shows. And I know that's kind of hard to see, but I'm coming from the front and around to this side. Now, guys, I'm going to put my camera back down, because you really can't do this with one hand, because that thread right now, it's not in my tension yet. It's not in my tension yet. So I'm going to try to do this so you can see it. I'm going to actually tug it and pull it in. That is tip number one, everyone. If you do not get your thread into that little tension disc right there, you're not going to have a nice bobbin and you're not going to have a nice stitch. So please make sure I brought it around just like the picture on top says, and I pulled that in. Okay, so I'm just going to ask Amy and Vanessa kind of level set with me. Everyone seems to be seeing okay, and we're getting along there everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, when you get a little bit further on, they'd like to see the automatic needle threader.
Oh, we will get to the automatic needle threader, you bet. So
somebody asked if you can pull it through again.
Sure, I certainly can. And here we go. I tend to pull lots of thread through. So again, it's going to come from the front. Do this if I can do this like this, from the front around to the back. And again, I'm just giving it a tug so it's getting into that tension disc. And I'm just following the instruction that's right on the top of my machine. All of our Singer machines have that little instruction. But if you have a different machine, you may end up needing to just go to a manual, or look up what the manual actually says for you to do there. All right. So now I'm going to go from the bobbin tension over to the bobbin spindle. Now everyone, this spindle, actually, if you push it to the right, that disengages the needle. To the left, it actually lets the needle go up and down. So that's what this does, is it's actually going to disengage the needle or have the needle being able to go up and down. We talked last week about bobbins, okay? So we talked last week about bobbins, making sure you have not only enough bobbins, but everyone also that you have the proper bobbins. So make sure these are 15 class clear bobbins. So you just want to make sure you have the right one for your machine. And this, if I bring this up really close, there we go, get that angle. Can you see how there's a little hole right there? Okay, see how there's a little hole. The instructions, I'm going to try and do this so you all can see it, but this is kind of important, is you're going to take that thread and notice I'm going into from the inside of the bobbin and putting it through that hole. Do you see how that, and see how that is on the inside? It's not from out to in, it's from inside out. See how that works? And then I know my hand was in the way. Now I got that out of there. You're just going to snap that on and push it all the way down, and see how my thread is just up through that little hole. Okay. Now I sometimes will just wind my thread around a few times, but this is very good to go ahead and make sure you have the thread in the proper place. But remember, we went from inside up, not from outside in. So really important. Once you have that like that, everybody, you're just going to push that bobbin over to the right. And what that did is it made it so my needle is not going to go up and down. And what I'm going to now do is step on the foot control. Okay, so when you step on the foot control, see how it's starting to wind, the bobbin's going up and down. After you get a couple wraps, you're going to take your new scissors, because I have my little handy dandy new shears, and then let that go. All right. And everyone, I'm gonna just real kind of level set and come back to the other camera for just a minute, if I can, so I can just talk with you for a moment. And what I want to do, and why I did this, and why I wanted to talk with you a minute, there are a couple things when you are winding a bobbin. You want it to be nice and even. That's really important. So you want it to be nice and even. But also, guys, I remember my mom and my grandma both, they'd have a little bit of thread of one color on a bobbin. And then what they do is they put more thread around it. And then they put another bunch of thread around it. And do not do that. Please don't do that. That can really throw off your tension. So if you have just a little bit of thread, take it off if you don't have another bobbin, or go ahead and get some more bobbins, you know, buy some more bobbins, but do not put thread over there, because it really does, honest to goodness, it really does throw off your tension. So please be aware of that. So Bianca, thanks for switching to that camera. I had to just tell my story there for a moment. If we come back to our other camera now, what we're going to do is, once you get a little bit on there, if you know, you'll get used to knowing how full you need to make your bobbin for your project. But once you get that done, you're just going to clip that. Okay, you're just going to clip that. Then I pull my thread, so it's just over here. So my thread is over here and my bobbin is here. Pull it back to the left and take it off. Okay. So that is winding a bobbin, and it is pretty straightforward. No matter what machine you have, it's going to be very similar. Again, the tips and the important part is making sure, for sure, you're in the tension here for your bobbin. And then making sure, and you can see here, hopefully you can see a little bit, how nice and even that feeds. So it really is important to make sure you have a good bobbin. Okay. So last time that we were talking, everybody, those of you who were here, okay, so those of you who were here, we talked about the bobbin area, the bobbin case, putting the bobbin in, that sort of thing. But what I neglected to do is I neglected to show you a front loading bobbin, all right? So a front loading bobbin versus a top loading bobbin. So this, we're gonna start here, okay? So this is my little bobbin that I just wound, okay? And we are going to take and just pop off the bobbin case. This is the bobbin case cover. So I just press this little black area here and pop this up, and then we're going to take this off. When you are putting your bobbin into the bobbin case, okay, so this is your bobbin case down in there. When you're putting your bobbin in there, let's see if I, can you all see if I do this like this? Okay, maybe. See how my thread, okay, see how my thread is coming over the top and it looks like a little letter P? Letter P is in Paul or pretty or whatever you want to say. You've got that there. That's how you want to drop your bobbin in the bobbin case. So it looks like a letter P and the thread's coming over the top. Now, let's try and get really up close and personal here, everyone, for those top loading bobbin people. When I pull my thread, there is a very small little silver, something that looks like a little, I call it a little finger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that thread goes around the finger, and you're never going to hear this, but I'm going to be really quiet. There was a little click. I know you couldn't hear the little click, but you want to make sure it clicks and gets in. That's actually your tension. So I'm going to do this again because I want to show you one other tip. So again, the thread's coming over like a letter P. Ah, I see someone heard it. I'm so excited. So when I drop this in, okay, when I drop this in, notice how I'm putting my finger on right here on the top of the bobbin. And there it was again. I don't know, Ashley, if you heard it that time either, but anyway, that clicks in. But by holding my finger here, it makes it so you can get the tension, the thread in the tension, and it doesn't like spin around a lot. So that's really important. Hold that finger, snap that in, all right? And then we're just going to, and I'm actually going to wait to put this on. And the reason why I'm going to wait is we're going to thread and then bring our bobbin thread from the bottom to the top, okay? So we will we'll work on that, okay? So now I'm going to come over here. And this is what is called a front loading bobbin. You don't see the bobbin up in here, right? So you guys can kind of see that. You don't see anything here. What we are going to do is we're going to take off. I knew I'd probably get my machines just a little too close. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take this guy off. This is your accessory tray. Okay, so this is your accessory tray. Has a place for different things in front here. Just going to set that to the back and to the side. And then also what I want to do is when we open this up, everyone, this is what is called a front loading bobbin. I'm going to zoom in or get in a little bit closer and then come down. Okay. So right here, this is the front loading bobbin. And what that means is the bobbin case that's on top here, there is a little bitty lever on the front, and it just pulls, and this is the bobbin case. Okay, so this is the bobbin case. All right, and these are for front loading bobbins, all right, so front loading bobbins. Now, I went ahead and I had another bobbin already wound for this guy. So where this little lever is here, okay guys, so where this little lever is here, that's where you hold your bobbin case. And then down at the bottom underneath, there is a little, it's a little, like a little cutout. So this little arm, when we put it back in, it's going to go into the little cutout at the top. So, and I'm going to do this again, so don't worry, I'm going to do that again. But when I get that in there properly, it doesn't move around, okay? It doesn't move around. So here is your bobbin case. And then everyone, when you turn your bobbin case around, see how that looks, and it has that little center piece. Your bobbin has that hole, and you're just going to put that right over the top and put that in the bobbin case. I'm going to pull the thread, and I know you can maybe see that little circle going around. When you pull the thread, it should go clockwise. See how that's going clockwise? And once you have that in there like that, this is, Vanessa and I were talking earlier, because everyone, here's the thing, is usually when I find I'm having problems with sewing, it's I put a bobbin in incorrectly or I've threaded it wrong. So that's why I'm taking so much time for this. So again, clockwise, turn this, and there is one little bitty slot. Can you see that little slot? Okay, we're going to take the thread and we're going to pull it, the bobbin thread, pull it in the slot. And then there was another click that you probably couldn't hear, and then the thread comes up into this area in here. So I'll do that again. Okay, so I'll do that again. So again, so bobbin goes in. When you pull it, it turns clockwise, little slot, and then you're going to go until you kind of hear it click. And the thread is up in this area in here, okay? So that is how you put in a bobbin for a front loading bobbin with an extra bobbin case like this. So now that I have my bobbin case, my bobbin in my bobbin case, excuse me, I am going to take that lever again. So remember, that's how we got that out. And I think I'm going to try one more thing to maybe get us just even that little bit closer, if I can move us down just a little bit. Okay, and maybe now you can see how there's a little like opening. See that little piece right at the top, little divot almost, a little cut right there. What you're going to do is you're going to take and hold that lever with the little arm of the bobbin case. So I know it's hard to see, my hands get in the way, but that little arm, you're just going to put that on. And then when I do that, it should not spin around. The bobbin case should be in there good. If I don't have it all the way, look at how that spins. Can you see how that spins? So if I do not have that in properly or in well, so that's what I always do. I always end up going, is my bobbin case in? All right, is my bobbin case in? And so that's how you use a front loading bobbin versus a drop-in bobbin. So Vanessa, as I'm gonna go back to my heavy duty. So I just wanted to make sure there were no questions, or
Okay.
we're going on. Okay, good. Yay, you guys, thanks for, I know Vanessa and Amy have been answering questions, so it's great to have a team that is helping out with this so much. So I appreciate that. All right, guys. So our next step is to go ahead and go into threading. So what I'll do is I'm going to come back up to the top that my little camera will let me do. Okay, so I'm now clear back up at the top. And it is important, everyone, I'm going to leave my thread just where it was. So I'm not going to change anything with the thread. That was on there well. You do want to take your thread out of the bobbin tension. So now it's out of the bobbin tension. I don't have to, I don't use that when I'm doing regular threading. The next thing will be there are a couple little clips right at the top on my heavy duty. And this is 1 and 2 clips. Whether it is in your manual, your quick start guide, or on your machine, there should be something that shows you a little guide. Okay, so there should be something that shows you a little guide. Now, here's the important thing, everyone, as I went through these 2 things. I forgot to say something earlier. Okay, I forgot to say something. So if you are taking notes, this is really, really important. And I'm just going to come out a little bit, because why it's so important and what is so important is you need to make sure. Remember last week, and again, if you weren't here last week, you can check it out, but behind your machine, there's a little lever that is your presser foot levers. All right, so that's your presser foot lever. With that little presser foot lever, you want that up when you start threading. It's super important. Again, if you're writing anything down, please, please, please write this down, to actually raise your presser foot when you start threading your machine. And the main reason is right in this area, there's a little bit of tension, and this is where your tension discs are. When the presser foot is down, the tension discs are closed and it holds your thread in place. When the tension disc is up, they're open, and then you can now put your thread into the tension disc. Okay, so that's really important. You have the presser foot up. My other little tip, because I always do this no matter what machine I'm sewing on, I will hold, see how I'm kind of holding my thread right as it comes off the spool, and I'm going to bring it down into the tension. If any of you have ever heard of someone saying something like dental floss your thread, kind of give it a good tug to make sure it gets into the tension disc. That's what that means. Okay, that's what that means, everybody, is holding that presser foot up and getting the tension into the tension disc. We're now going to follow along our little instructions, basically, but our arrow there. And when I come up to the top, this is the take-up lever, everyone. This is the take-up lever. We talked about it last week. I'm going to go from the right to the left, and it gets into the take-up lever. So from the right to the left, it slides into the take-up lever, and then you come down the front of your machine.
If they can't see it.
Oh, yeah, Vanessa. Wow, thank you, Vanessa. So what Vanessa just said is, remember on the right side of your machine, there was this hand wheel. What the hand wheel does is if you are turning the hand wheel and turn that towards you, it's making that take-up lever go up and down. So if you can't see the take-up lever, make sure you turn it until you can see it. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. So now there's a little, again, depending upon your machine, you will kind of find there may be one machine may have one little catch above the eye of the needle. A different machine may have another catch above the eye of the needle, but there's like a catch here. And then on my heavy duty here, there's a catch here, right, like that. And here's my next tip for threading. I'm going to put my presser foot down. When I put my presser foot down at this point, okay, I should, when I see how I'm kind of pulling this, it has tension on it. That means that the thread is not pulling out like it's pulling off a spool. It's not easy, right? If your thread is pulling out easy, like it is, like right now, see how I'm just pulling thread. When I put that presser foot down, you should have some tension. If you don't have tension, everyone, that means you need to go back and rethread up here, rethread where that tension disc was. All right, so that's really important. So put that presser foot down. Now, I'm smiling a little bit because some of you were already anticipating with the needle threader. So the automatic needle threader, I'm going to show you that. If you do not have an automatic needle threader on your machine, you're just going to thread through the eye of the needle from the front to the back. Okay, so from the front to the back. If you have a needle threader, again, it's easier to use your needle threader if the presser foot is down. So that's another reason. Put that presser foot down to check your tension and also to help you with your needle threader. The other thing is you want your needle at its highest position. So what I just did, up and down a little bit here, right? So basically, I want that needle in the highest position. Okay, so presser foot is down like that. And then thread from front to back. Okay, thread from front to back, or in the case if your machine has a needle threader, this is how I use my needle threader is I take the thread just a little bit to the left and I hook it. There's a little hook, right? And so I hook it around the little hook. And then when I pull it down, I will give my needle threader just a little push, and a little wire should go through the eye of the needle. And then I'm going to bring my thread just forward. See how I've got it just a little bit forward, and then let go of my thread up here and also of the needle threader. What just happened? And I'm going to, again, maybe make you a little seasick. But what happened is, see, there's now a loop of thread through the eye of the needle. Now, guys, this takes practice using that needle threader, and I'll do it again for you. But then you just pull that loop all the way through, and that pulls it through. So I'll do it again. So I'll do it again. So presser foot down, very important. Go through the, and you can, I usually go under and around, but you can go over the top and around and push the needle threader through the eye of the needle. And then it just pulls your thread right through. Okay. All right. So if you, okay, so guys, if you are not able to get that needle threader, I tell you to practice, practice, practice. I've done it a few times, but make sure you practice and try that. And you can replay this over and over and over. Okay, so you can replay this over and over and over. But basically, if you don't have that needle threader, just thread from front to back. All right. The last thing for threading, and I know, okay, guys, so I know that this is taking time. But I want to go through and make sure you're hitting all the good, getting all the good information you need. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take and turn that hand wheel on the right side of our machine, and it's actually going to pull the bobbin thread from where the bobbin is to the top, and then raise your presser foot. And you're going to have both threads. So see, hopefully you can kind of see I've got the top thread and the bottom thread. Okay, so top and bottom. And we're just going to pull those both underneath the presser foot and both threads going to the back. And this is where on the front loading bobbin, or excuse me, the drop-in bobbin, we're just going to put that back on. Once you have that threaded, if you have that front loading bobbin, you do the same thing, and then you just shut that like that. Okay. So before I move on to stitching and tension and different things like that, Vanessa and Amy, how are we doing? Do we have any questions that I need to address? I'll go ahead and come back to our other camera for a minute if we need that. All right. I think Vanessa and Amy are typing away, so I don't think they need me. I think you guys are doing great. I don't know that you need me either, but
I'm not sure what this one was asking.
Okay.
Should you thread the needle, then put the thread in the hole?
So
A holder.
Oh,
Sorry,
in the
that,
holder.
sorry,
Sorry.
I just read that too. Yeah.
okay, so so when you thread, so you want to, when you're threading the needle, some people do, there's like that little catch, maybe that's what you're asking about, or I always have my needle in my machine when I thread it. Maybe that's what we're asking. I think it would be too difficult to thread the needle and then put it back up in the machine. You might end up needing a little magnifying glass to help you thread the needle if you don't have a needle threader. So something like that. But that is really, you know, what you would really want to do is have the needle in.
So a couple questions. One,
Yep.
will you thread again?
Sure.
One, will you thread on the other machine?
Okay.
And please mention the model number of the Singer Heavy Duty.
So the Singer Heavy Duty is the 4452. I have to remind myself, it's the 4452. It's very similar to a couple other heavy duties, but this is actually just one of the latest models. It's really a great one. So 4452. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get back to our other camera here and, or our other machine.
And use the needle threader again.
Okay, all right. So, okay. So now I'm back to my other machine. And guys, with this, all right. So one thing with this particular model, it just depends on your model. This does have a telescopic thread guide. So if you've ever struggled, this is the SM024. And this one, you do want to pull that spool pin up. And then the threading itself, pardon me for my hand getting in the way there. The threading itself is really the same. I'm not going, this again, that's your bobbin tension, right? So I'm not going to use the bobbin tension. I'm going to come into my first catch. Make sure, again, everyone, make sure that presser foot is up. So that's really important. So again, presser foot up. Come down the front and do that little dental flossing into the tension to make sure it's there. Down under, go from right to left in the take-up lever. And if you need, I know I'm completely in the way, but if you need, turn the hand wheel, okay? So that the take-up lever is up. Just catch here, catch above the eye of the needle, put the presser foot down, make sure I have some tension, which is great. And then I want to make sure that that needle is all the way up for that. This is the needle threader may look slightly different, but it's the same process as it has the little catch underneath. And again, so I've got that underneath that little catch. I bring the part that goes through the eye of the needle forward. And then there's that loop that came through the needle. And then I'm smiling a little bit because now I'm going to try and do this without, well, sorry about the camera. I'm going to try and do this without being there. Take that thread down, give this a little tug and pull it up. And front to back. So really does exactly the same thing on each machine, okay? So it's really the same thing. You're going, whatever catches you have on top, down through the tension, up the side, and then through the take-up lever and back down to the needle. And it, again, machines may be slightly different, but really, really, the steps are the same. So tension, down, take up lever, back down, and then through the eye of the needle. Okay. So now think we're okay. All right. All right. Very good. So this is great though, guys. I'm really, really glad you are having good questions, because once you get your threading, okay, so once you get your threading done, then you're going to, you know, it really is at that point, you are, you're ready to go forth and conquer, do everything once you have your threading, okay? So I have my thread, everyone. And I say I have my thread, I have my machine threaded, no matter which machine it is. I'm gonna come over here for the heavy duty. It's the 4452. Again, the other machine was the SMO 24. What you wanna do is on any of your machines, so again, on any of your machines, I want you to find a straight stitch. Everybody's machine is a little different, but everyone has some sort of straight stitch, and the picture looks like that. This particular machine has a dial, so I'm going to make sure that that dial is set to that straight stitch.
There are a couple people using featherweights, so
Okay.
they may not have a stitch selection dial because that machine would only do a straight stitch.
So Vanessa, for those of you who are thank you, Vanessa. For those of you who are working with featherweights, okay, so for those of you who are working with featherweights, it is a straight stitch machine, so you don't have a dial. So when you sit down, it's going to do that straight stitch. So thank you, that's great. In our case, we have a straight stitch here. There's somewhere on your machine that says something about length, and we want it between 2.5 to 3. And then on the top of this particular machine, it has a stitch width. And guys, I just want you to kind of see where they are. The width should be at 0. Length, like I said, about 2.5. And that's your normal straight stitch. We are next week. Okay, so next week, we are going to start talking about why we're going to use those stitches, what techniques we're going to work with, that sort of thing, okay? But today, I just want you to find that straight stitch, stitch length about 2.5. Now, once we've threaded, and now I'm seeing some questions coming across about tension and things like that, so we are going to talk about this. There are, on every machine, there are or is some sort of tension dial, or some of you may have a more advanced machine that it might be electronic, but in most cases, there is a little tension dial. With this tension dial, in general, there are some, like, can you see the lines on the tension here? On the tension dials, that means those are your average. That's about where you want to be for your tension, between 3, whoops, sorry, my camera was fading there, between 3 and 5. On our other machine, okay, if I come back over here, you're also going to see that, see how the 3 has a little box around it, and the 4 has a box, and the 5, but other numbers do not. So those are your average numbers, and usually between 3 and 5 is what your average tension should be. So I'm just going to take a piece of scrap fabric. Highly recommend that before you make a project, everyone, you test sew on the fabric you're going to use. Okay, so test sew on the fabric you're going to use. So, and also in general, when you're making a project, you're putting 2 pieces of fabric together, right? So I'm just going to fold this. So usually when you test sew, you're going to want to use fabric you're going to be stitching on, and with the fabric you're going to be stitching on, 2 layers. So that's why I folded that in half. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my presser foot down. It is really, really important you put the presser foot down before you start sewing. And it may seem like, oh, I always do that. I will tell you, sometimes I forget, and it can cause a mess in your machine. So always put that presser foot down. And if you are uncomfortable with just setting that down, you can just hold your 2. See how I've got both of my threads just kind of, I'm not pulling, I'm not pushing. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of hanging onto those threads, and I'm going to step on my foot control. And when I get to the end, this also is kind of important, everyone, is I'm going to turn my hand wheel, I should say, until my take-up lever is up to the top. If that take-up lever is up to the top, that makes it a little bit easier so your threads won't pull out. So now let's take out our fabric. There's a little thread cutter on the side of many of our machines, but you can also use your scissors. And there is your basically your straight stitch, front and back. All right, so front and back. And that actually is a really nice stitch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys another little tip. When you are working with tension, I just saw this and I forgot. The higher the number, so let's tip this down here a little bit, actually. So the higher the number here on your tension, okay, so the higher the number, the more tension there is on top. So the more tension there is on top. Normally, between 3, 4, 5 is about what you want, okay? So 3, 4, 5, that's about what you want. So that is really where you want to be for your tension. Now, I'm going to give you another little tip here, okay? And that little tip is we're going to change to a zigzag stitch. So we just sewed with a straight stitch, it looks nice. Now we're going to change to a zigzag stitch. Okay, so I'm over here and I'm going to turn to where it shows a zigzag stitch. Okay, so it looks like a little almost backwards Z or a W on the side, whatever you want to say. And then for a straight stitch, we had our width at 0. Here, for a zigzag stitch, we want to take our stitch width as high as it will go. So if it is, depending upon your machine, it might be a 4, might be 5, might be 6, but as high as it'll go. And the width, you know, between 2 and 3. Or excuse me, the length, I said that wrong. Gosh, sorry guys. Width 6, length between 2 and 3, and then we've got our zigzag stitch. All right. Why I want to do this is how we will test actually what our machine, how our tension looks on our machine. So I'm going to just sew this. Again, when I get to the end, make sure that my take-up lever is all the way up. And what you see when you see the zigzag stitch, okay, the zigzag stitch, when I flip it over, you should not really, you can see how you can barely see the top thread coming to the back. That's what you want with a zigzag stitch. That is exactly what you want with a zigzag stitch, okay? If you don't have that, if the threads are pulling down, then you do have to adjust your tension. And I'll talk about that in a minute, so don't worry. But I just wanted to show you, this was another little test sew I did on the SM024. And you can see that back looks really nice as well. Okay, so that back looks really nice as well. All right, so everybody, what happens if your tension doesn't look right, right? What happens if your tension doesn't look right? Well, here is something that I did earlier, just to show you all a little bit and what you're looking for. In general, when you look here, that looks pretty good. That's the top thread. That's what I just sewed on this piece of fabric. But look at the back. And I'm gonna, can you see how there are some little loops? See how there are some loops on the back? And there's also some loops here. Whenever you see loops like that on the back, that means your top tension probably is either not in the tension disc or needs to be a little higher. So you would take that tension number, get that up there, you'd take it a little bit higher, up toward the 6. So that means you're putting more tension on top. But really, everyone, when you're getting these loops like this, that really is most likely you didn't have your thread in the tension here. So you maybe didn't raise your presser foot when you were threading. That really is quite significant. And so you really want to probably, if you have a mess, you know, have things that look like this, just take the time to rethread. Vanessa and I and Amy all talk about rethreading our machine if there is a mess like that. Now, here is another little piece that I want to show you, because again, the top looks okay, but if I get up close, can you see how there's a little bit of thread on top? It's just kind of pulling, the bobbin is pulling up a little bit. But then here's the nasty part, right? Yikes, all that bad stuff behind. Basically this, when I did this, I actually took the thread out of the bobbin tension. So I actually took it out of the bobbin tension. And so by taking it out of the bobbin tension, I had some loops up top. I had this nasty stuff in the bottom. Guys, it is so imperative that if you see, you know, loops like that or this messy stuff underneath, just stop and take the time to rethread both top and bobbin. Make sure you hear the click in the bobbin. And if you really, really have something going on and you've rethreaded a couple times, this might be time to change the needle as well. And this is what maybe someone was asking earlier about changing the needle. You basically, you want to have the needle in the needle clamp when you are threading, but I just took out the needle. Okay, so now I took out the needle and see how there's a flat side, okay, on the needle and a rounded side. The flat side for almost all machines, I know this is not true for a featherweight though. Featherweight, I think the needles go a different way. Is that right, Vanessa? I can't remember on the featherweight. So guys, when you change a needle, that flat side in general is going to the back. And again, make sure you have this down. And I'm going to show you the needle threader once again. Okay, so I'm going to show you the needle threader once again. So we're going to do the little catch underneath. And there we go, catch underneath. And this time I didn't bring the needle to the highest position. So make sure that's at its highest position. Under and pull that through. And that will take, actually, I let myself go a little even too slow because that sometimes slow is not the best with the needle threader, but we'll do that. Pull it a little bit forward and then let that go through. All right, and you know what? I'm gonna stop right now just because I'm trying to do too much, I think. So we'll go ahead.
Address back stitching at the beginning and end.
All right. So let me do this with my hand in your way, guys. So of course, now that I have the hand in the way so you couldn't see it, there we go. The question ended up like at the beginning of a seam. So at the beginning of a seam, like here, and we'll talk about this in lessons, I think 3 and 4 as we're going through. But if you back stitch at the beginning, what that's doing is back stitching is helping to hold the thread so it doesn't actually pull out. So I can't like pull this and it won't pull out. If you back stitch, use the reverse at the beginning and the end of a stitch. Now here's the thing is if the seam, so if I was going to sew another seam across this, there's no need to really back stitch. But if you're not going to do that, then you want to backstitch or tie your threads to hold the threads. So backstitching really is if it's going to be an open seam and you're not going to sew over the top, and it does help to hold the threads, the stitch in place really is what it does. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move this little camera in. Actually, if I can get you for a moment, Bianca, to go to our other camera shot. And once I get to the other camera shot, what I'm going to do, well, I'll bring this back here. I just didn't want to make you woozy as I was going through, because with the other camera shot, I wanted to share a little bit about needles and different things like that. And with the needles, there we go. With the needles, then I made a little chart. Last week, I kind of made a chart like this too. But when you look at the needles on michaels.com, there are a couple things you want to look at. The first is about size, right? So the larger the number, okay, the larger the number, the heavier the needle. I'm not going to get into whether 80, 11, 90, 14, those are the same needle numbers. So I usually go by the 80, 90, 100, and 110, like that. It's just two. One is like one is a Asian number. One might be a European number. That's not critical. 80, size 80 needle, everyone. That is the needle size that you really are going to use the most. Okay, so that's what you're going to use the most. I use this for most cotton fabrics, things like that. The 90-14, so the 90-14, this is if I'm doing denim. I will go to a 90-14 for denim. These two sizes are if you're doing a lot of upholstery or something super, super heavy. So really, these are your two needle sizes that you want. And then everyone, there's a universal needle and also a ballpoint needle. The universal needle, it's called and I don't want to confuse you. What I'm going to say first is the universal needle is named that for a reason. It really is universal to most fabrics. It is a semi ballpoint, so it's not as rounded as the ballpoint, but it does work for many, many types of fabrics. The ballpoint needle really is for knit fabrics, stretchy fabrics, okay? So 80 is really your average size. And then the type of needle universal, that's what you're going to do most of your sewing with. The 90-14, a little bit heavier denims, that sort of stuff. And then the ballpoint is if you're doing knits. Okay. All right. So any questions about that? All right. So guys, I'm looking at my watch. I can't believe it's been this whole time. We're going to answer a couple more questions, but I want to thank you as we get to the end of this. Yes, Vanessa.
What type of needle should you use when you sew on slippery fabric? And there was another one on cotton canvas or duck canvas, and another one on wet needle for satin.
So on all of these, so there was a question about super heavy canvas or duck or slippery fabrics or, just heavier fabrics. The universal larger size needles work well for that. For slippery fabrics, you're going to use that 80 universal for most slippery fabrics, slinky fabrics, that sort of thing. But guys, and satin, that was the other one, excuse me, satin. The important thing for this, everyone, very, very important, is using a new needle. Okay, using a new needle. If you come in and let's say I've been sewing denim for, putting up hems on my kids' jeans, and then I come back and I'm going to sew on a satin fabric, I have to change that needle. Make sure you change the needle for what you are using. It's really, really important for that. Okay. All right. Anything else, Vanessa or Amy?
What is a twin needle used for?
So question was for twin needle. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Remember, we're still just getting started as far, we're on number 2 of 5, but I'll make a note. Usually a twin needle is either for decorative or maybe for hemming on knits, but I'll make a little note and make sure that we show you that, because next week, if you're following me along, next week is number 3, is our 3 of 5. We're going to start talking about stitch techniques. We're going to talk about other presser feet that maybe came with your machine. So you guys know we just used a straight stitch, right? So straight stitch, make a seam, but what else do you do with a straight stitch? And I breezed right over that zigzag, right? Because we were doing that for tension. However, think about what all we can do with the zigzag stitch too. So we're going to be working on those sorts of things, and we're just building as we go along. So if you do need to go back and rewatch this will be up on the Michael's YouTube channel. If you also need to rewatch number 1, the first session where we talked about, you know, the different parts of the machine, that's also there too. So just kind of want to make sure that those resources are certainly there for you. So you can always rewatch that, okay? So anything else? I'm trying to find my other little piece here. Anything else, ladies, as we went through? We covered a lot today, everyone, and I know, please go back and just kind of rewatch and do this on your own machine. I know that, you know, I can't have every single machine here, but it really is something that is very consistent with threading, with bobbin winding, as well as with, with your tensions as well. All right. Okay, so I do want to, bringing this from last time, if you guys go ahead and you're creating anything fun or you want to show what you did, basically make it with Michael's classes and Singer Sewing. If you're using any hashtags for anything, we'd love to see what you're doing. So that is really exciting. And one last question, I can tell. We have one last question, and then we've actually run out of time. I can't believe it.
One person wants to know if she can kind of stay on and show you the top of her machine because she's having difficulty threading it. And I don't know if that's possible.
I need to ask Bianca that. So I think we can certainly ask Bianca that. The other thing we might be able to do is if we can have a picture. I don't know if we can see a picture of it, but let's let Bianca let us know about that. And other than that, everyone, I'm so excited, and I hope you guys learned a little bit, reminded yourself of some things. Remember, next week, 3 of 5, we're going to talk about stitch applications, how to use these stitches that we've been working with. Okay, so everyone, let's go ahead and Bianca, maybe is there an email address or some way that we can help this person that needs?
Hi. I'm wondering if maybe we.
Oh, I just lost Bianca.
That's okay. I gave her my work phone number. Told her she
go to the gallery.
Okay. I think what we can do, Bianca, is we can help her. Vanessa can help her a little bit offline. So I think we got it figured out. So, all right.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right, everybody. Thanks again. We'll see you next week. I hope you had some fun and learned a little bit, and take care. Bye, everybody.